And a look at the tables this evening. We'll bring in Tony Mepham, our Manx Radio football correspondent. A very, very good day for St Mary's. They leapfrog St John's in fifth. That means they're 4 points behind their opponents who they played today, Rushen, who on 27 points. A very, very good day for St Mary's then, but a very bad one for Rushen.
Well, it was because the top of the table was still chipping away with 4 or 5 teams, 4 anyway. And that's Peel, Corinthians, St George's and Rushen. If Rushen had won today, they would have been a point behind Geordies. Yes, Geordies have games in hand, but it was one of those games, Chris. It was the first half, it was a little bit all over the place. You know, Rushen had a couple of good chances. St Mary's sort of dipped the toe in it a little bit, and it was okay-ish. But the second half, you just thought, well, let's get a goal here early on and see if the game can fire into life, and it did, because Mikey Williams scored one, and it was Josh Kelly really who did the work well down the right hand side, managed to get the ball in, and it was Tom Hall. Felt sorry for him because I thought he was going to clear it, but he didn't quite reach it, and Mikey was there to fire it in to give him the lead. And then I thought, well, Rushen are going to build on this, but you know, St Mary's, Carl Clark was impressive at the back, and I thought Nathan Holzall had a really good game down that left hand side. And you know, Rushen unfortunately conceded an equaliser. Tommy Johnson, left foot again from probably the edge of the penalty area, hit it with his left foot, and that made it 1-1. But then the goal that gives St Mary's the lead was absolutely superb. Stevie Priestnall, just clever as he is, just lobbed it over the top of the goalkeeper to make it 2-1. And then, you know, Dean Kearns went wandering. He was under pressure. He had to come out for the ball, got caught out of position. The ball was played back in, and then there was a handball. Penalty was awarded, and Stephen Priestnall put it to the goalkeeper's right to make it 3-1. Rushen will be really disappointed. I think, personally myself, I think it was a disappointing first half, but in the second half with 4 goals it got going, and St Mary's will be happy. Was it a 3-1 game? Maybe not, but doesn't matter to St Mary's. They're showing great form at the moment.
To go a goal up though for Rushen, what went so wrong for them? Did they just sit back and allow St Mary's to dominate possession, to dominate the game?
I don't think Rushen's forward line was threatening enough. You know, I thought Josh Kelly was a little bit quiet. Jack Saxon can deliver well. One of his crosses in, and Kirill had to tip it over the bar. Mikey Williams looked always an option for them, but you know, Mikey's a really good player, but the ball's got to be sort of put there for them. And I thought James Murphy in midfield sort of sniffed out a few of the sort of balls that could have maybe have been sent forward to Rushen. But you know, St Mary's, Connor Birch first half, they did well, him and Carl Clark. Alex Harrison in midfield was working well with James Murphy, but then in the second half just changed a little bit, and when that goal went in, you just thought, no, that's it now, Rushen are going to sort of step up a gear. But midfield, I thought today Rushen didn't do a job, and I think that's where the problems come. You know, with Matty Lamb, who's played so well of late, Josh Thomas is knocking on the door for a starting lineup, and it didn't quite come together.
Why is St Mary's home form so good, yeah, their away form is so bad?
I don't really know. At the moment, St Mary's form is Stephen Priestnall's form. If you can sort of get the ball to him, he can score goals from stupid areas. He's got that there with him. He's a great goal finisher. I think he's got fitness back. You can see he's happy in it, because Alex Harrison, take nothing away, since Brian Cartney and Jim Cooper stepped to one side, Alex has come in and done a really good job managing that team. And like last week, he stepped out of the team. I don't know if he was injured, and they beat Ayr 7-0. And credit to them. You know, you got people like young Jordan Cooper up there, Nathan Holzall, who are good young players coming through. And you know, I think Nathan's much improved. I've watched him over the last 3 or 4 years since he was a kid, you know, in the Cal Cup team. And I thought today he always looked an option with that left foot. And you know, fair play to them, because you know, St Mary's struggled at the start of the season, and they're in good form at the moment, and they'll be looking to see what Richard pulls out of the bag later in the FA Cup draw. So credit to them.
That's Richard Foden, who joins us in the studio. Tony, St Mary's now in 5th place, 23 points. Is that a true reflection of how good they are, though? Because they have played now 18 games. The teams at the top, Corinthians, Peel and St George's, have played significantly less than that. So is this a true reflection of the table?
Yeah, I think it is. I think Old Boys are way down. When you look at Old Boys, they've only played 10. When you look at sort of St George's, once the games start sort of coming in, but now the problem is, like next week we've got the two cups, the FA Cup and the Woods Cup, to come in. It's rearranged fixtures after that. We're starting this backlog now. We gained another 10 games today, so we're up to 175, 180 now. And I think we can bring Richard in on this. I think people just want to play football, and when you think Richard's a little bit different, they've got an FA Cup game to come, they've got a Woods Cup game to come, but also they're looking for promotion to get into the Premier League, and I think it's becoming a bit frustrating for you.
I think so, yeah. I think it'd be good to play week in, week out, but I don't think it helps when you play 1 week and then there's 2 games called off, 3-4 games called off. Obviously you can do all the training you want, but if you're not playing matches, you're not a match fit, are you? So
is there a distinct difference? Do you feel yourself not a yard off the pace or whatever, or just not ticking as well as you would be given a run of games?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. If you play week in, week out, I think you play a lot better, you're a lot fitter, but if there's games called off, you do really struggle, yeah.
And results breed confidence.
Yeah, that's it.
Castletown, you had a bit of a blip, and then you've got back winning. You've got 2 cup games to come up, so hopefully one next week, depending on how the draw goes, and then one the week after. So potentially it's another 3 weeks before you play a league game.
Like you say, when you win and you want to play every day. So, yeah, play as much as we can.
How do you see Division 2 going at the moment? I know Castletown are right up there. Pulrose got beat midweek by St John's, so...
Yeah, I think it's tight up there. I think the likes of ourselves, Pulrose, I even think Rycob as well. I think they're a good team, but I think Foxdale as well. I think it'll be us against Foxdale, us against Pulrose. I think those games will be the sort of the title deciders and who gets promotion and who doesn't. So
how big an influence? How big an influence? Sorry, do you think lack of game time will be? Some teams are playing more than others, but as you say, it's playing 1 week and then they could have 3 weeks off, whereas other teams could have 8 weeks off, if you know what I mean, and come back and have a run of games, and that could ultimately benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, we were supposed to play Foxdale a couple of weeks back, and I don't think they'd played a home game since the 15th of November or something, so they'd have sort of 2 months off from playing at home, which, if they're winning, it's not a good thing. They want to be playing all the time, so let's just try and get as many games as we can and just keep playing.
I'd be a little bit nervous if I was a top team in Division 2 at the moment with the form of Moran. They're sort of, I think, got an opportunity to spoil things.
Yeah, I saw them against Pulrose and they did really well. I mean, Pulrose, obviously, they got the likes of Steve Glover and Mark Priestnell. I mean, they're 2 of the best players I've ever played with, so to beat them is a real good result. So yeah, they may come charging up late and surprise everyone.
Good omens for you then. Are you looking for anyone in particular in the cup draw?
I'd like to play a Division 1 team, yeah. I think it'd be good to sort of test ourselves against that division up, see where we are, and then, if we do get promotion this year, we'll sort of know where we are and what we need to do over the summer to improve and sort of reach that level, yeah.
And just how far away do you think you are?
From Division 1, sorry.
From promotion, yeah, from being a top flight side.
I think we need to get the big games out of the way first. I think we need to play Foxdale, Pulrose, Rycob and Moran again. I think once we've played them games, we'll be able to view where we'll be next year a lot better. But I think the biggest difference between Division 2 and 1 is a big thing is fitness, massively. I think the likes of Braddon, my best mate Joe Andrews, he's there.
Yeah.
They call them Braddon Harriers because they run for 40 minutes every single day, basically. So, yeah, I think fitness is a huge thing. But like I say, we'll see where we are after the big games and then go from there.
And Tony, how many cup draws do we have tonight?
We've got 4. We've got the Friends Provident FA Cup quarter-finals. We've got the GH Corlett Woods Cup quarter-finals. So some either-ors in there. While Richard's up here, I'm going to get him to do the Women's FA Cup draw. And then we'll finish off with the Masters First Round Cup draw as well. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, Rams. You sent a combination 2 score first, because did it finish up 6-0? I think
it did finish up 6-0, yes. Convincing win. I don't have the scores to hand, I'm afraid. We were having trouble getting that score in, I think, but it has finished. Ramsey Youth Centre 6, Governors Athletic 0. No surprises, I think, in the way that this game was always going to go to the home side. They were always going to take home the points. Well,
Ramsey Youth Centre top of the table and with a bit of style at the moment, and Governors Athletic are 10th, I think it was. But just to clarify, just one point at lunchtime, Chris, is if you remember, we were talking about the Malou against Pulrose game. What happened was the 3 officials made their way down to the game and deemed the pitch unplayable. I've seen the pictures of the water on the pitch. Malou were a bit surprised. They thought the pitch was playable. but the referee just said no chance. So that was why that game was called off so late. So any inconvenience caused by some travellers, spectators going down, that was the reason why it was so late in that decision.
But at the end of the day, the referee has got a decision to make, and if he feels that the surface is unplayable, he's not going to let that game go ahead.
Well, that's right. It goes down to safety because that's paramount, to make sure that players aren't going onto a football field that's unsafe, and that's what can happen with pitches that are holding water. I've seen the pitch at Moran today, and Moran's pitch, crikey, I reckon if you walked in the middle of the puddle, you'd be a foot underwater down at the dip at the bottom part. And I know just at our pitch this morning, I got the phone call about 8:30 to say no chance, lie in water. So it's just one of those. We've just got to sit tight. I know it's not helping things. We tried to get a game on the bowl tonight, but unfortunately one of the teams couldn't get their players together, and that's why that didn't happen.
Well, we'll have these cup draws coming up right after the break. It's 5:20. You're listening to Manx Radio Sport Classified with me, Chris Kay. Tony Mepham's in the studio, as is Richard Foden, and we're just about to do the Friends Provident FA Cup quarter-final draw. And let's get that underway. Richard Foden is pulling the balls out of the bag, so let's get that underway. First ball, please, Richard.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Peel.
Number 3.
And Peel will have a home tie against Douglas Athletic in the quarterfinals.
Number 7.
Number 7 is St John's.
Number 1.
Number 1 is Castletown.
Number 8.
8 is St Mary's. They won today. Stephen Priestnell on form. They'll have a home tie in the quarterfinals.
Number 2.
And number 2 is Corinthians or Laxey. That game didn't go ahead today. It was postponed, as it was the week prior to that as well. But it'll be St Mary's against either Corinthians or Laxey in the quarterfinals.
Number 5.
Number 5, Ramsey or Braddon.
Against number 6.
And they will host the champions in the quarterfinals, St George's. Let's go straight then. Tony Mepham, your analysis of that cup draw. Which is the standout tie for you?
Peel will be happy that they got a home tie against Douglas Athletic. Douglas Athletic had an impressive result against Douglas Royal, played really well. St John's against Castletown. You got your Premiership side, Richard, so at St John's as well. This game is provisionally down for next Saturday, and there's no reason at the moment I can see why that can't be played, because the FA Cup and the Woods Cup, it's unfortunate Castletown are in both, but the FA Cup's the one we need to clear out. St Mary's against Corinthians or Laxey. Corinthians or Laxey will hopefully go ahead next weekend, but we've got to wait and see how many Ireland players Corinthians have chosen Paul Jones. And Ramsey against Braddon against St George's. I couldn't have worked out better, to be honest with you, because Ramsey or Braddon will play next week, and St George's have got several players who are going to be in that squad, I think, and I would have lost that one anyway. So Peel against Douglas Athletic, I think that game will probably go, because I'm not reading Paul Jones's mind, but I would say that there'll be 1 or 2 players from Peel in there, and Steve Fulton will probably choose not to play the game, which is in his rights to do so.
Richard Foden, Castletown travel to St John's in the quarterfinals. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think it would be a good game. Like I said before the draw, it would be nice to get a Division 1 team, test ourselves against the big boys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think Paul Rose played them last week, and I think there was a good game. So I think if we work hard and put 100% effort in, I think it'd be a good game. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And St John's with significant pedigree as well. Who do you think are the standout players for the opposition when you meet?
I think the likes of Johnny Harland. I used to play with him at St Mary's. He's the strongest guy I've ever seen. He's so hard to push off the ball. He's very composed. And they've got Big Sam Ingham at the back as well. I think it's one of the Rothwell boys there as well.
Harry?
Is that Harry Rothwell? Yeah, he's up there. He's a good player. So, like I said, it'd be good to test ourselves against better opposition and see where we are, yeah.
So those draws, once again, these ties we played on the 17th of February next week. Everything permitting, but as Tony said, he already thinks Peel against Douglas Athletic may not go ahead then, but it's Peel against Douglas Athletic, St John's against Castletown, Corinthians or Laxey will travel to St Mary's, and Ramsey or Braddon have a home tie against the champions St George's. We head on now to the GH Corlett Woods Cup quarter-final draw. Those ties also due to be played on the 17th of February, and if I could ask Richard Foden once again to do the honours.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Michael,
Number 5.
and they'll play Malou or Pulrose at home in the quarterfinals.
Number 4.
Foxdale,
Number 6.
and Foxdale will play Moran or Onken.
Number 3.
It's a home draw for Douglas and District. Obviously, Richard Brandt having his testimonial there last Sunday at the Bowl in a 4-all draw.
Number 1.
And they will play Ayr at home in the quarterfinals.
Number 8.
Number 8 is Union Mills or Ramsey Youth Centre,
Number 2.
and they will play Castletown in the quarterfinals. Once again, Tony, so we have Michael against Malou or Pulrose. There are quite a few ties there that were just drawn, which we still have to have a deciding fixture because matches haven't been played.
Yeah, couldn't have worked out even better. Let's take the last one that Richard pulled out. Union Mills or Ramsey Youth Centre against Castletown. Well, Castletown are going to be playing in the FA Cup, so that Union Mills and Ramsey Youth Centre game can go ahead. D&D against Ayr will be played. That's a good game for two sides that, not being rude, in the lower half. So they've both got everything to play for to get into the semi-final of the GH Corlett Woods Cup. Foxdale against Moran or Onken. We'll have to get that Moran and Onken game out of the way, and it might not be a bad idea, to be honest with you, because I think Foxdale's pitch, Billy Motors we like to call it, is struggling with water. And Michael against Malou or Pulrose. We'll get that Malou and Pulrose game done and dusted next week as well. So yeah, we'll try and get these fixtures all sorted out for next week to go ahead, and some rearranged fixtures to fill the rest of them up as well.
Which is the glamour tie in your eyes?
Glamour tie. I don't know who's going to get through between Moran or Onken, because Onken are in good form, so are Moran, and then they'll play against Foxdale. So I would say probably that one, even maybe Union Mills or Ramsey Youth Centre. I think Ramsey Youth Centre will beat Union Mills, and I think it'll be Ramsey Youth Centre against Castletown, but then it's a tight pitch, isn't it, Richard, down at Ramsey Youth Centre if it happens down there?
Yeah, we had a game earlier the year. Luckily we won 3-2, but like you say, it's really tight. But yeah, they're a good team, Ramsey Youth Centre, and I mean, they're not guaranteed to beat Union Mills by all means. We played Union Mills early. I think we beat them 4-3, and then we did a bit better later on in the season. But both of them are good teams in that division, so yeah, I think it'd be a good game either way.
There you go. Foxdale versus Moran or Onken is the glamour tie in the quarter-final of the GH Corlett Woods Cup for this season. If we move on to our next cup draw this evening, the NedBank Women's FA Cup.
Yep.
I can just tell you while we're putting the balls back in the bag to reshuffle them in the Six Nations. It's currently England 12, Wales 3. And a recap of the Manx football scores that happened today. Only 2 of them in the Canada Life Premier League. St Mary's 3, Russian 1. A big win for St Mary's. It takes them into 5th place. And in JCK Limited Division 2, Ramsey Youth Centre 6, Governors Athletic 0. A resounding win there for Ramsey Youth Centre. But now let's draw the balls for the NedBank Women's FA Cup. And Richard, once again, do the honours.
3 games, please.
Number 1.
Number 1 is Colby.
Number 4.
And they will play at home against Douglas Athletic.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Tony's team, Corinthians.
Number 5.
And they will play Douglas Royal.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Peel.
Number 3.
And they will play Douglas High School Old Boys. Tony, what's the standard of women's football like at the moment? Isn't it a healthy state on the Isle of Man?
To be honest, it's hard to say, really. I think all squads are working on really low numbers. When you look at Corinthians, they're top of the league at the moment, undefeated, I think, on grass. And they won the Floodlit Cup. And I watched the game against Douglas Royal, the final. And to be fair, I thought it was a pretty dour final, to be honest with you. And I expected more from both clubs. I know Corinthians were players short, and so were Douglas Royal. And I think, the way it's worked out there for the FA Cup, one of the big guns are going to go out. Peel have got a home tie against Old Boys. You'd expect Peel to win that. Corinthians against Douglas Royal. Depends on the day who's got the strongest team. And Colby against Douglas Athletic. Colby have stepped up a gear, I think, this year. So it's good to see them in there. And Laxey have got the bye, and Laxey have got a good young players coming through. But the problem is the young players are coming through, but then they go to university and other things, and it's just keeping things going. But because they've had a bit of continuity, the women's grass fixtures I think are complete the first half. Then the floodlights done on Astro, that's fine. But now becomes the real awkward bit. We started losing games because their league games are on the Sunday after when the men have played. And at the moment, the games aren't getting played on the Saturday, so they probably won't be getting played on the Sunday. But we've switched one tomorrow, and hopefully the other two games will go ahead. But I'm expecting phone calls to come through when the rain comes in tonight, and we'll probably lose a couple of games tomorrow.
3 ties in the NedBank Women's FA Cup. Then Colby against Douglas Athletic. Douglas Royal will travel to Corinthians, and Peel are at home to Old Boys. The fourth and final draw of the evening. Richard Foden is getting very, very tired here in the studio. It's for the Masters FA Cup, the quarter-final draw. And once again, if you could draw the first ball.
Number 5.
First out of the hat is Laxey. They'll be playing
Number 1.
Number 1, Braddon.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Douglas and District.
Number 2.
And they will play Colby.
Number 8.
Number 8 is Union Mills.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Peel.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Moran.
Number 4.
And the final ball out of the hat is Douglas Royal. Tony, again, which is the standout fixture for you there? Which is the standout tie for the quarterfinals of the Masters FA Cup?
I'd probably say Moran against Douglas Royal. I know Moran over the last couple of games haven't been able to field a team due to injuries and players being away. Union Mills against Peel. It depends what team Peel put out, because they've got a band of good players who can play for them. But obviously, if you play for the first team on the Saturday, you can't play Masters on the Sunday, which I think is a good rule. It stops. I know they're good players, and if they're still good at 35, they should be given the opportunity. But some clubs were just saying it just wasn't quite right. D&D against Colby. D&D a much improved Masters team this year. Colby got a bye through because Corinthians couldn't field a team last week, so they got through on that one. And Laxey against Braddon. I'm going to go for Laxey, because even though Braddon have struggled at last couple of games, they'll hopefully get 1 or 2 players back in that'll just be able to enable them to field a team. But I think Laxey will be too strong for them, and they'll go on and win that game.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Well, let's go have a run through of those draws, because it's quite a lot of information to take in. But ties to be played on the 17th of February for the 2018 Friends Provident FA Cup quarterfinals. Peel against Douglas. Castletown will travel to St John's. St Mary's, they'll be at home to either Corinthians or Laxey. And then Ramsey or Braddon will be at home to champions St George's. In the GH Corlett Woods Cup quarterfinals, it's Michael at home to Maloo or Polrose. Foxdale have a quarterfinal tie against Moran or Onken. Douglas and District face Ayr. And then it's Union Mills or Ramsey Youth Centre against Castletown. 3 ties in the NedBank Women's FA Cup. Colby against Douglas Athletic. Douglas Royal travel to Corinthians, and Old Boys have a trip to Peel. And then finally, as you just heard, Laxey against Braddon, Douglas and District against Colby, Peel against Union Mills. Union Mills, the home side there, and Moran against Douglas Royal. And those ties to be played on the 25th of Feb. That's the Masters FA Cup quarterfinals. But I thank both Tony Mepham and Richard Foden for your hard work this evening. It's work which has earned you a drink, I think. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.